right, so here we have Algebra 1, 9.4, completing the square, day 2. Okay, so we have x squared plus bx plus half of b squared is equal to x plus half of b, the quantity squared. That factors to this. So to create a perfect square trinomial, we again are going to add half of b squared. So half of b is a negative 10, squared is 100. Half of 18 is 9, squared 81. And half of a negative 9 is a negative 4.5, squared is 20.25. So that's completing the square or making a perfect square trinomial. So now solving, same process. I have the 7. I need to figure out what I'm going to add to both sides. To figure that out, it is half of b, which is 3, squared is 9. So I add 9, I get 16. X plus 3 quantity squared, that factors to this, is equal to 16. Do the square root to both sides. I get x plus 3 plus or minus 4. Subtract the 3, so I get negative 7 and 1. So completing the square there. Number 5, same process. What am I going to add to both sides? Well, half of b is a negative 2, squared is 4. So I'm adding 4, so I get 3. Do the square roots to both sides, rounding to the nearest tenth, 1.7. And then add 2. So when I do that, I get negative 0.3 and 3.7. Number 7. I have the 21 here. I have to move the 21 to the other side. So it'll be minus 21. Half of 12 is 6. Squared is 36. So I'm adding 36 to both sides. When I factor this, I get x plus 6 quantity squared, 15. Do my square roots. Round to the nearest tenth. I get plus or minus 3.9. Subtract the 6. So I get negative 9.9 and negative 2.1. So now it gets a little bit more complex because I'm going to be doing completing the square where a is not 1. So I have to get a to be 1. So I have to divide everything by 4. Divide everything by 4. So I get x squared minus 1x plus what is going to equal, and then 24 divided by 4 is 6. So half of a minus 1 is 0.5. Squared is 0.25. So I'm adding 0.25 to both sides. This trinomial factors to this. 6.25, doing the square root to both sides. I get this. And then add the 0.5, and when I add the 0.5, oh, here it is, add the 0.5, I get negative 2 and 3. So those are my two possible solutions. Number 9. Again, I don't have a equaling 1, so I have to divide everything by 2. Also, I subtract the 2 from both sides because I need this to be blank because I'm going to add that value to both sides. So add or subtract the 2, I get 6. Half of b. Now remember, this is when a is 2. Here's where a is 1. So half of b is 1. Squared is 1. So I get 4. Square roots to both sides. 2. Subtract the 1, so I get negative 3 and 1. Number 10. Okay, number 10, divide everything by 4, and I have to move my 40x to the left side and divide everything by 4. So half of a negative 10 is negative 5, squared is 25. when I did the 44 divided by 4, I had 11. Add 25 to both sides, I get 36. Do the square root to both sides, plus or minus 6, and then add the 5, I get negative 1 and 11. Number 11, word problem, the product of two consecutive odd integers. Well, remember, the first odd integer is x, the next consecutive odd integer is x plus 2, and we want the product of those. So x times x is x squared, 2x, plus what is going to equal 483? So half of 2, so I got to figure out what that c is. Half of 2 is 1, squared is 1. So I'm adding 1 to both sides, so I get 484. Square root of both sides, I get plus or minus 22. Notice here now, if it is a negative 22, minus 1 is a negative 23, is my first odd number. So my next odd number would be a negative 21. So I could have a negative 23 and negative 21, because if I multiply those two consecutive odd numbers, I'll get 483. Or if it was a positive 21, and I subtract, or 22, and then minus the 1 is 21, and then I have, again, the next odd number would be 23, so 21 and 23. So notice I have a negative 23 and negative 21 as my product to get 483, and 21 and 23 as a product to get 483. So here you can think of it as I have 4 answers, because x is either going to be a negative 23, go back into the problem, that means negative 23, negative 21, or x could be 21, which would mean it's 21 and 23, 483. So your assignment is page 26, again you have to go back to that big document, page 26, 1 through 19 odds. And good luck.